All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the season 2 PXF Award Show. People are starting to filter in here. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we've got about 8 or 10 or so in so far. We'll get started here. So Sam, obviously tonight we're talking about PXF Awards. Just a few to go through here, but before we start, did you want to maybe share any thoughts on how season 2 went for the league as a whole?
Well, I thought you were going to say how season 2 went. Luckily, you added in that as a whole because changes my answer a little bit. Nah, it was a good season because season 1, as we were all learning and going through the growing pains of how to build game plans within Madden and such. We we got a little bit out in front, and it was a little bit more feel as the 49ers kind of dominating this season. The Falcons did a great job, and obviously were in the lead the whole second half, and they won it all. But it felt like at any time, top to bottom, anybody could win any game. So I thought it was very competitive. It'll be nice to have a year where we don't expand, so the defensive players stay on the defensive side of the ball, and see if we can round that out a little bit. But overall, I'd say season 2 was more competitive, top to bottom, and a fun season to watch.
Yeah, for sure. It's always good when stuff comes down to the wire, and I think every game in Week 10 had something to play for, whether it was seeding, home field advantage, the bye, a playoff spot, whatever. Every game mattered for something, whether it's small or pretty impactful. So that's good to see. And like you said, not expanding, shouldn't see a whole lot of position movement. Obviously, some players are going to leave and retire, or whatever. That happens in every league. But through the position change forms, I think we only have like 4 players so far at last check requesting changes. So we should see a little bit more continuity than we did last season, I think. So
Yeah,
so that's exciting.
and with that, I mean, I didn't touch on it, but in the championship game, as I mentioned, we had 2 rookie quarterbacks. So quarterback, obviously, with football, and in this league, it was a passing league, especially for season 2. To have 2 rookie quarterbacks make it to the finals says that as we roll into season 3, any team has a chance to win it all.
Yeah, for sure. Every player on the field is obviously impactful, and yeah, like you mentioned, the two rookie QBs in the final. And we saw it in season 1, especially the 2 teams that lost a lot of players during the season made the final. In season 3, some of the teams that were up there in player losses. I didn't run the numbers like I did in season 1, but season 2, I think there was a little bit of that as well. So as you're kind of going through the season, if you start losing players, you don't necessarily need to be, I guess, discouraged or counted out, because it's going to be competitive right to the end. So that's good to see as well. Yeah, so I see some people in the chat talking about kind of joking about different awards. So we'll talk about which awards we've got coming up tonight, and then we'll get into the reveals of them. So we're not doing position specific awards. Like there's not going to be a best cornerback, a best safety, a best defensive end, anything like that. We will have all pro rosters out another day. We'll have voting for that coming up. But so there's not position specific awards, and there's no rookie awards. So we're looking at a championship final MVP, a special teams player of the year, coach of the year, offensive player of the year, defensive player of the year, and MVP. So the same slate of awards we had last season, coming up again this season. Sam, what do you think about the slate of awards and kind of the thought process behind no rookie awards this season?
Yeah, when we talked about awards, we were kicking around the rookie of the year for offense and defense, which will be a season 3 award. But with season 2 being, there's some rookies that had changed position, which gave them a slight boost. And, there's still not much separation between a rookie player and a second year. So now we got a little bit of veteranism in there. So we're going to be doing rookie moving forward, but didn't feel it was right in just season 2. And with the rest of the awards, I think there's a couple that maybe a little bit obvious or some automatics, but still great to recognize those that got close, and then also the people that do win the awards.
Yeah, for sure. And then just the last thing to kind of throw out there, I started doing this with goals awards a few seasons ago and all stars and everything like that. Just a quick disclaimer, awards, there's a lot of deserving players in the league that deserve to win something, only a select number of awards. So remember, these are to be celebrated. If you think you should have won something and didn't, or a teammate didn't, just try to congratulate who won. And um, yeah, lots of great seasons that aren't going to be getting an award um, this season. So just keep that in mind. All right, Sam, what do you say? You ready to get into some reveals?
I am, and then the last part of the disclaimer is it's a committee of so you can be mad at Evan and I. We're the
Yeah,
ones that chose these awards. Not a whole lot of back and forth. We had pretty similar choices when we kind of do a blind reveal to each other. So um, it's a committee of two, just so everybody knows we're the ones that picked it.
yeah. And worth mentioning as well, Sam and I are maybe the only two in the league that watch. I don't know about you, but I watched every game this season. Some maybe a little closer than others, but so we're watching every game. We're streaming them. We're a little more hands on with watching the games. So even without some of the stats being updated, we did have some stats, but a lot of it is eye test as well. So that's important to note for sure. All right, so up first we've got the championship game MVP. So I figure, Sam, maybe we'll just take turns revealing each one. So I'll go ahead and mention the championship game MVP. Obviously, the Atlanta Falcons won the championship, so congratulations to them. And this player obviously was dominant through a lot of the season. And in the championship game, he had something like 7 catches for 200 and something yards and 4 touchdowns. I don't have the stats in front of me at the moment, but this was wide receiver Flame Dragon taking home the championship game MVP award. Last season's winner, for reference, was quarterback Travis Webster of the 49ers. So, yeah, congratulations to Flame Dragon. Very deserving. One of the, I guess, biggest threats in the league. What are your thoughts on Dragon's performance in that championship game?
I hated it, but you kind of had to pick your poison a little bit, right? Of who you want to try to shut down, him or Danielson.
Yeah.
I do think that one thing that this award goes to show is how much a change of scenery helps when you leave the Steelers. So those defensive backs that potentially might need to play somewhere else to get a better change of scenery. Just keep that in mind. No, I'm just kidding. But Flame Dragon, I think that I would say probably almost a 50-50 split this season on when he or Danielson would go off. And on those days, you just hate to even see him line up. You watch your corner, and if you have your number one corner that you're trying to game plan to get him on him, and then all of a sudden Flame goes into the slot, or you know uh, through a different formation, all of a sudden he's got a different matchup. You're just hoping that they don't throw that deep ball. So yeah, he started out as the fast guy. I think he started speed right at the beginning of progressions, but now he's catching the ball. So it's
Yeah.
much more dangerous now. So very well deserved, great game, and as much as I hated to see it, but uh, I think this one was pretty easy vote. I think most people kind of figured that after watching that game. What were your thoughts, not just on that game, but the game plan as well that helped them out?
Yeah, for sure. Like you mentioned, kind of picking your poison, Danielson or Dragon. Early in the season, our game against them, we keyed in on Dragon because we knew what he could do. Obviously, he was a Steeler last season, and once he started working on that possession late in season 1, early in season 2, started getting that catching up to go with that speed, he was unstoppable. So we were able to kind of contain him in our first matchup. Danielson went off for like 300 yards and 14,000 touchdowns or something. But and then the obviously the second matchup, I think they both torched us. So it's definitely an electric offense, a tough one to stop. And watching that game live, and then obviously flipping through the stats at the end, I think this one was like, as soon as the game was over, I was like, well, Dragons championship game MVP unless I missed something. And we talked about it and both agreed after. But yeah, hell of a performance. A hell of a player. So congrats to him. Did you want to go ahead and announce the special teams player of the year?
Well, now you're making me find my notes that you told me to talk about. Like Squib said, committee of two means that you're the one that made the choices.
Yeah.
Uh,
I just want to throw this out there for a couple of these ones. it wasn't all me, just for clarity. But go ahead.
I'm gonna have to find. I don't have first names memorized for everything. So for the special teams award last season, I think it was kind of a speed thing and a progression thing. It was hands down the kickers that, especially through
Yeah.
punting, because field position was so big in season one. But season two, the folks that we talked about a lot for special teams players ended up being the returners, which big difference from season one. But all that speed that we have, and so we have for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Harper, which he changes his name in every league, so I'm not sure what his first name is. Dominic, there we go. Didn't want to guess and be wrong, as our special teams player of the year. So he had a couple of kick returns for touchdowns, a lot of field position gain from him. And I don't believe he started your year as a kick returner, did he? Or was it just not last season?
Definitely not last season. Last season we kind of went with like our receivers, just for more of a possession type thing. But then once we saw, kick returns starting to go to the house, I think late season one or early season two, we saw the first one, and so we put our speed guy there at the risk of maybe a little bit of ball security. But I don't think he fumbled. Maybe he fumbled once. I don't think. I know there was one that was called back. I don't know if he had another fumble on a return, but the speed was a huge factor. He had a couple touchdowns, I think, and obviously we started close to midfield on a lot of our drives, thanks to him. So.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
after watching Harper return kicks for 2 weeks, I made the switch and put Cam Jones as kick returner, saying, you know what,
Yeah.
I'm going to try to copy that. It kind of changed the league a little bit, having a defensive player go back there and not coughing the ball up. So it was a great switch by you guys, and it worked really well. There was a couple of good kick returners this season. I know that there were definitely more returns for touchdown this year than last year, because I don't believe any got all the way back last year, or maybe one did, and then this season we had quite a few. So
Yeah, I can't remember if
very,
the first one was week 9 of last year or week 1 of this year. Like it was either the last game of last year or the first game of this one. We saw the first one, and then we started seeing a bunch this season. So
I do know that with the short kickoffs and then somebody returning it well, it definitely changed some games. So very important kick returners in season 2.
yeah, absolutely. Last season's winner, for reference, I don't know if you mentioned it before, but it was May Rose, the kicker / punter for the Dallas Cowboys at the time.
And we
But
picked that mainly based off of her punting, which is
yeah,
probably the first time in my life I've ever voted for a punter. Sorry, go ahead. I can go ahead and announce the next one if you're ready, Evan.
yeah, sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry.
Unless you're back, then you can do it, because I got to go find my note again.
Yeah, I'll be 1 second. I'll just be stepping away for a sec if you want to go ahead and announce the next one. Sorry.
Okay. First, I'm going to take a look at the Twitch chat and see if there was anything in here, any questions. Let's see. So Shad's saying that they had 2 kick returns on their team. And then I think that there was definitely some other teams I think the Cowboys ran one back. I'm surprised Matt's not on there telling us about how many kick return yards he had for the season, but I know that there was definitely a lot more in season 2. All right, defensive player of the year. Here I am, not a very good solo host. Defensive player of the year. I have the first name now. Now it's the Pittsburgh Steelers, Dominic Harper. So Harper, I know that, I game planned for the 49ers, and I know that when we were playing the Steelers, I was trying to find ways to make sure we got the ball to the tight end and in the slot to try to, keep from Evan guessing the correct matchup, because, he had Harper kind of floating around depending on game plan for the week. I was okay. How are we going to make sure that Harper does not cover the guy that we're going to get in the ball to? A lot of turnovers. We don't, we're not going to be talking exact stats tonight, but definitely a lot of interceptions, shut down on a couple of different occasions, some of the top receivers. So when you play the Cowboys and the Falcons, it's about picking who you want to shut down, and that's where he moved Harper around and did a great job all season. I don't think he got torched. I think he had a couple of plays in the semifinal game that we might have gotten some yards against him that worked out pretty well. But what all did you have with Harper? Definitely watching those games very closely for season 2.
Yeah, you mentioned the semifinal game. You guys had some completions against him and stuff, but even when there was a catch against him, it was very rare that the player got more than a couple steps on him after making the catch. He made the tackles pretty quick in most occasions. I know the semifinal he might have let one or two slip by, but the big thing I think with Harper, obviously, like you mentioned, he was a big part in shutting down some of the top receivers that we had to go up against and trying to play the matchups and try to line him up on the right side of the field. But it was after our first game against the Falcons when we tried to shut down Dragon. We mostly did. He still ended up with, I think, 1 touchdown on 3 catches for like a bunch of yards because he had a big play. And but Danielson torched us on the other side. And I noticed that Harper did a great job shutting down Dragon when he was in man, not when he was in zone. So after that, we took every play that had Harper in zone coverage out of our playbook and just kept him in man. We didn't blitz Harper at all season, except the one game we played him in the slot to try to get that matchup against maybe Philly's slot receiver or something like that. But yeah, didn't really blitz him, didn't have him in zone. And, he got a lot of picks and caused a lot of incompletions for sure. So definitely a deserving candidate for this award. And yeah, I'd say single-handedly won us some games, or at least our defense did, getting the turnovers in the right spots. So big player. Unfortunately, we couldn't quite put it together in the semifinal game, but yeah, hell of a performance this season from him.
And I think, defensive player, there's a lot of players that played really well this year for the 49ers. We had Cam Jones that made quite a few plays, again, trying to move him around and matching them up. I know that for the Falcons, it was always nice that, Shaw would make all the tackles. He would end up on his back after he'd tackled my player, but, he made the tackles. There's a lot of quality defensive players out there. You claim that other teams actually have sacks, so there was quite a few people who get sacks, according to you. But definitely a lot of good performances. Defenses definitely got their back ends kicked this season, but a lot of guys that did play really well. And looking forward to season 3 having a little bit more balance between the offense and defense.
Yeah, for sure. And you started seeing even the rookie corners that kind of struggled early on starting to make some big plays down the stretch. So definitely going to be huge to see what they can do with a lot more veteran defensive players. Obviously, some of them will switch positions and whatnot, but a lot more veterans in the defensive backfields this season, I think, than what we saw in season 2.
And if any of those guys want to play for the 49ers, feel free to reach out.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay. I don't know which awards you got through while I was away, but
we have offense and MVP next. You can go ahead and do both of those.
Sounds good. So, offensive player of the year. Actually, so his wide receiver of the Atlanta Falcons, Brian Danielson. So another, we talked about Dragon earlier as the finals MVP, and now we've got Danielson, the guy on the other side of the field. When I checked their stats last, and it wasn't updated, I think there was only about 7 or 8 weeks of the 10 in there last time I looked for the Falcons stat lines, and these two receivers had 16 and 19 touchdowns respectively through like 7 games or something. So hell of a season that these weapons put together on the Falcons, and just a great performance for Danielson. Like I said, we tried to shut down, we've keyed on Dragon in our first matchup, and it kind of came back to bite us when Danielson went off for 350 yards or something and 4 or 5, 6 touchdowns, something along those lines. So definitely an electric player. And that Falcons receiving core was very, very difficult to go up against. What are your thoughts here on Danielson and the Offensive Player of the Year award?
I think that again, I hated playing the Falcons because for our team and a lot of the teams, we only had one DB that was kind of already up to speed, so it was try to pick your poison and then see if you can game plan around stopping the other guy. Uh, so I think with the Falcons, they could have, the offensive player of the year could have went either way with those guys. But this season, more passes went to Danielson, and he had a couple of insane games that had some stats that went way out there that kind of gave him the lead. But they're just, they're built to have two speed guys. I can't think of another speed receiver like Tyreek Hill, but uh, you know, you have two guys like that on the same field. How do you stop it? And that's what they
Yeah.
have right now. And it's not just that they're just running straight, and that's their whole game plan. They're catching slants and turning them into touchdowns, and it's just a lot of playmaking ability between those two players. And Danielson did an amazing job all season. I think there was a couple of games where he was being hard on his player in chat, and I think he still had like 90 yards or something like that. And then when those feel like bad days, that's a pretty good sign.
Yeah, no kidding. Like when, yeah, like I said, we felt like we shut down Dragon one week, and he had I think 105 yards on 3 catches and a touchdown. And our game plan worked for him, but he still found the holes in when we were in zone, and that feels like an off day for him. So definitely, this offense was electric, and like you said, when 90 yards, 100 yards, whatever, a touchdown or two, if that's a slow day for you at the office, that's you're having a hell of a season. So, maybe with these veteran corners coming back, maybe we'll be able to shut them down a little bit better. But if the Falcons' offense stays intact next season, it's going to be a very tough one to match up against night in and night out.
And
Um,
by the way, when you stepped aside, I skipped over coach of the year, so we do have to go
okay,
back to that one. We got to backtrack a little bit.
okay.
Who's a player that you'd say was an offensive player that maybe was on the fringe of getting your player of the year?
For offensive player of the year, kind of on that bubble. Um, yeah, I mean, obviously, any of the Falcons' passing game could have been up there. I also think Deep Root Strong Branch, the tight end for you guys, was dangerous. We have in Pittsburgh, we have a couple really good tight ends, but we just struggle at getting them the ball. For some reason, our game plan just doesn't feed them enough. And you figured it out. You got Strong Branch, and he is dominant when we go up against him. And like with Harper on the back end, I feel like we match up well with teams with a good speed receiver. Maybe not with two speed receivers, but at least with one. But teams with a good tight end, like what you've got going on with Strong Branch, that's tough to match up against. So he was there. Obviously last year's winner, Amelia Rose, had a hell of a season as well between the two teams that she played for. So that would have been another one to look at as well. But yeah, I think if it wasn't going to be a Falcon, I think probably Strong Branch was up there. And then obviously even yourself running the ball. I think season one had a much better season. It seemed like the running the ball league wide was a little bit down this season, but still a hell of a season back there for you guys. Did you have any names in mind for kind of bubble guys?
Yeah, I think that Strong Branch is what makes our offense tick. Like you mentioned, this season our yards per carry was way down, but definitely Strong Branch does a great job. Our receiving core, we spread it between all four guys, mainly the top three, but uh, also obviously the Cowboy receiver connection. Those guys are
Yeah.
frustrating to play. The Cowboys scored a ton of points. They gave up a ton of points, but those two guys are very good. And if one of them got fed over the other one, then they'd probably be up there with statistics, leading the stats for sure.
Yeah.
But they're both definitely good quality receivers that unfortunately Julian, it looks like, stepped away, but
Yeah.
Matt's gonna be back next season, and that's gonna be a scary receiver that has a chance of being player of the year or MVP at any time.
Yeah. Yeah, Gore Striker also mentions Carter for the Steelers, which is my player. I had an okay season, some big games, nothing really huge. But I will mention if Squibbs was a little more consistent this season, I think he would have been kind of in this conversation as well because he had I think a 9 touchdown game, something like that. Had a couple of really big passing games, and then had a couple head scratchers as well, but I won't say too much bad about him, even though he's been saying Evan sucks in the chat for pretty much this whole show. But if he was a little more consistent, I think he probably could have been in this conversation as well. And, maybe he'll figure out how to do that next season.
Well, he's working on it right now by consistently saying that you suck.
Yeah. Trying to motivate me to get his passing yards up. Maybe I'll run with the ball a little bit more. But yeah, Squibs asked what I was just saying. If you had a little bit more of a consistent season, you might have been in the conversation for Opoy. All right, so I guess so. We just got coach and MVP left, I think, now. So we'll backtrack to coach. If you want to go ahead and announce that, and then we'll do MVP last.
I really don't want to talk about the coach of the year. I guess since I was season one, but I think this is probably the most obvious award, but we'll go ahead and announce it anyway. So the coach of the year for season 2 for the Atlanta Falcons, Shad Allen. Probably I don't smack talk him a lot, but probably my favorite guy to give him a little bit of jabs here and there. We play on the same SFL team. He's my teammate there. We're doing pretty decent this season. And then also he coming in, and I could tell he wanted to mix it up at the beginning with some run game, some defense, and he's fun to chit chat with. So I was happy when he took it over. We kind of both, when we were going through the applications, both said, well, I got one guy that I think would take over or be a great coach to start with, or for the expansion. And he's the one that I was saying, hey, let's give him a shot. I think he's going to do a great job. Maybe I shouldn't have, since he beat us in the championship, but Shad every week was making adjustments to the game plan. Like he mentioned in chat, it was fun to move his guys around to try to hide them from DBs. He knew what we were going to try to do, and it's okay. How do I get this guy open still? So he did a great job mixing it up. He mentioned at one point in the chat, great offseason recruiting. When he did the expansion draft, when we were all said and done, I thought that the Falcons were in pretty good shape. And then he took the quarterback that I thought that he would pass on based on height, and then ended up, winning the championship with a rookie quarterback. So Shaw did a great job. Definitely well-deserved. And I think he's going to be a fun challenge to try to take him out in season 3.
Yeah, for sure. There's so much that goes into coaching in a sim league, and he was making adjustments almost every week. I think there might have been 1 or 2 weeks where he didn't have changes to the playbook. So when you see that type of stuff, he's really game planning, doing his homework, kind of getting ready for the next matchup. And as a streamer, on days when I had a busy day at work and got home late, maybe it wasn't always the funnest thing to see, but it's great to see that involvement from a coach. And I think that's a big reason why they were able to win the regular season, which is what these awards count for. And then obviously he won the final as well. And it's something I mentioned I read back the write-ups I did for last year's award winners, which obviously you won this award last year. And one thing I mentioned was that last year you made the most adjustments out of any team. And I think Shad did the most adjusting, by far out of any team. I made some adjustments to my playbook a few times this season, nothing crazy. Made some depth chart changes, but Shad was making changes week in, week out, getting ready for those next matchups, and that's really great to see. And then obviously coaching in a sim league goes to team building as well, and he did a great job putting together that team. Obviously, those 2 receivers were huge additions in the expansion draft, and he did a great job recruiting with that one. Any other thoughts on the coach of the year here before we move on to MVP?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned building the team, but also keeping everybody engaged, right? So you don't have folks leaving, so you have people getting progressions in. I'm not the most technologically sound person, but Shad was the first one putting some clips up, asking to make channels, giving people opportunities to see what their players did if they didn't get a chance to watch a game. So I think all that kind of goes in to show how much more he was putting into it, maybe than the rest of us, and he got the prize at the end. So great job.
For sure. Yeah. And that's a good point with the clips. And he was usually one of the first ones to remind me to publish the VOD, which for some reason this channel doesn't like to publish them automatically. It makes me click a button at the end. So he was always reminding me to do that, which shows he was going back and watching it and showing his guys things, clipping things, watching the film, stuff like that. So huge, huge performance for him and the Falcons this season. All right, so one more award. We got the league MVP. Last season was Dallas Cowboys quarterback Peter Parker. This season, we went with another quarterback, and it is Willie Beeman of the Atlanta Falcons. Not really a surprise with the weapons that he had, but a weapon's only as good as the guy getting it to him. And Beeman did a fantastic job getting the ball, spreading it around, and really finding his dominant receivers for some good yards. Because even like when we were able to shut down Dragon for most of that first game I mentioned, the targets just got fed to Danielson. He went to Dragon a few times, but being able to get the balls to those open receivers and make them pay, Beeman did a fantastic job at that this season.
Yeah, and I didn't do it myself, but I'd be interested now to go back and look at week 1 and week 2 and see what he was typing in chat when his player was making some horrendous throws. He got off to a slow start. I know he was pulling his hair out, and he came in as the short quarterback, and wasn't, my expectation was that he'd fall for several things, but he was the first rookie taken, I believe, right? He was the number 1 overall pick, or was he number 2 because Creek picked first? But he was a first
he was
round
up
pick.
there
I know
anyway.
that.
Yeah.
And he definitely came in. Shad knew what he was doing, took him, and did a great job improving his player throughout the season. Because, like I said, the first couple weeks, it didn't look great all the time. I think through almost the first half of the season, there was definitely spots, and the team picked him up. The defense played well, uh, and let him build up. And then from there, he just took off. And towards the end, he was definitely a player making plays.
Yeah, for sure. And to have that many wins, and the run game had some good games, but for the most part, that's been a challenge, I think, since the league started for us as coaches, is getting the running backs enough carries. And that's something that I think the Falcons struggle with in some games this season, was getting the running game involved enough. And but he was able to rely on this passing game. So really, really beneficial. I just checked; he was the first overall pick last season. So yeah, and the fact that he was able to win MVP, and I don't think that that's a stretch by any means. Kind of shows what you were talking about earlier with the rookie awards, that they're not really needed in year 2, at least, of this league. Goals, I think goals, we added them after for season 2. I think he said Saville, you added for season 3. We're gonna add him for season 3 here, but yeah, with a little bit of work, he can he's not that far behind the veterans, and he had a hell of a season throwing the ball for Atlanta. Yeah, and Shaw even mentioned he started out rough. I think there were a few games where he had first drive picks, kind of struggling a little bit there, but yeah, figured it out and started playing really well and deserving of this award.
Yeah, and going off of memory, I believe a couple of those games that he was cussing himself for the way it started, I think he actually ended up being the hero by the end of the game and having great fourth quarters and pulling
Yeah,
some of those out.
probably.
So, yeah, definitely a great season. Be interesting to see how much he improves in season 2.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, I think that's all the awards that we've got for tonight. We will have some all-pro voting going out, similar to the Pro Bowl voting last season, but we're not going to do the Pro Bowl game this time, but we will name the all-pro rosters for people to see and kind of congratulate them on that. Any thoughts on that, or any other general thoughts on how the season went, or the awards there, Sam?
Yeah, I'm excited to see those come out because one thing with the Falcons, they got all the offensive awards tonight, and the coach award, but they were definitely, I believe, they gave up the least amount of points in the league on defense. That's from some ball control on offense helping out. I mean, it's a team sport, obviously, right? And but their defense did a great job all season. The All Pro, I'm sure you're going to see that where they're going to have some bodies on there. But definitely, that's the only bad thing about individual awards is you miss that group dynamic. But leading the league and points allowed, I think, is kind of how you win that. But their defense did a great job, help their offensive players get the awards. But don't want to overlook that the defense is kind of what made them tick. Then they had some statistical guys on the edges that stood out, and somebody throwing them the ball. So, great job by the Falcons again. Congratulations, Shad, and everybody there. Not only on the championship, but on getting a lot of awards, and again the biggest slam dunk, the Coach of the Year award. So that's all I had.
Yeah, the Coach of the Year award, like you said, slam dunk. That was probably the easiest decision that we had to make. I like to think through this type of stuff usually after stream ends. I'll take my dog for a walk and I start kind of thinking about stuff. And that one was just like there's no one else, right? Like I went through the whole list of coaches, and yeah, like it was shot or no award this season basically for that. Like he was unreal. So yeah, this show was a lot of fun. So I should have mentioned this at the beginning, but I didn't. But huge shout out to Potty for putting this together. For those that don't know, Potty is the one producing this show behind the scenes. You'll know him from doing Rinkside on for goals and all of that. So he reached out to me with the saying he wanted to work on some live shows and kind of wanted to see what we were doing for this. And we were just going to post pictures and write-ups like we did last season, but he came up with this idea, and I think it turned out great. It looks fantastic. So thanks to Potty, did a fantastic job. And I think Tyler Grimm's helped him a little bit with some of the graphic stuff as well. So he's not in the league, but a lot of you guys know him. So, thank him as well. But so those two guys did a great job on this show. And then obviously thanks to all the players and the coaches and owners in this league to make this thing possible. Because, we enjoy doing this, but there wouldn't be a league to enjoy without, I don't even know what we're up to now, 100, 150 people. Probably not that many, but yeah, without all of you, it wouldn't be possible. So huge shout out to them as well. Awesome. That's all I got, Sam. Any closing thoughts before we sign off?
No, just want to jump on the back of that and say thank you, Potty. Definitely nice and easy. You reminded, I already goofed up the Coach of the Year thing and skipped over that. You reminded us of that. And as a producer, the only way you can get better is by finding two better hosts. But you got what you got.
Yeah, you got to work with the hands you're dealt, right? Awesome. Well, yeah, thanks, Potty. Thanks to everyone, and thanks for tuning in, everybody, and good luck in season 3. Have a good night.